Hey everyone, it's Saoirse, and today is my 100th video, believe it or not. I can't believe it. It feels like just yesterday. But anyway, today we have another sort of mole-centric video. I know I talked about moles in the last one because of Wind in the Willows, and today we have the phenomenal book, How to Catch a Mole by Marc Hamer. This was published in 2019. I adore the cover. I should have included this in my covers video because this is stunning. I mean, the gold that's on it, it just shimmers, and I just love the way it's a circle. Everything's very pleasing to the eye. So anyway, because it's a mole video, I brought out some mole things again. Here's a little mole picture. Look how sweet he is. My mom gave me all these mole things for my birthday last year. If you didn't see him last time, this is Edgar, and he's from Once Upon a Forest, which is a fantastic children's movie, I think from the 90s, because it was my childhood. And then this I got for myself on Etsy last year, and it is, come on ring light, don't do this to me. It is a very antique mole print it's from 1808. Okay, look at those feisty little moles. So this was from some book, and somebody was selling the page on Etsy, and I had to have it because moles. So I saw this book in the store a while ago, possibly a year or more ago because it's from 2019, and I wanted it, but I didn't get it, and then my mom got it for me for Christmas, and she didn't even know that I wanted it, so that was perfect. She is very good at getting gifts. I don't know how she does it. I did not get that gene. So let's dive right in to this. I will read you the flap, and I'm gonna have to chill out here because you can probably tell I love this book. I love it. I read it in like a day and a half. Kneeling in a muddy field, clutching something soft and blue-black, Marc Hamer vows to stop trapping moles forever. In this luminous work of nature writing, the former mole catcher tells the story of what led him to his strange career, from sleeping among hedges as a homeless teen to weeding windswept gardens in Wales, and why he eventually gave it up. Over the course of his final days catching moles, he reveals the secrets of his craft, burrowing into the mysterious lives of the small, velvety creatures whose work is as solitary as his own, and sharing the intimate knowledge of a life spent in wild places. The result is a sublime and life-affirming book about the inevitability of change, and what a deep understanding of nature can tell us about our own humanity. Okay, so as I was reading this book, pretty soon after I began it, I instantly knew, oh, this is one of my favorite books now. And that feeling, I don't think I've had that in years. And yeah, I don't even remember the last time I had it. Just knowing when you begin a book, this strange thing is happening where you realize it's going to be one of your favorites, and you're going to be saying that years from now when somebody asks what your favorite books are, this will be in the list. I felt that coming as I was reading it, and it was such a beautiful, exciting feeling. You know I love memoir, and I love poetry, and I love nature writing, and I love moles, and I love the UK. So this kind of had it all, and also because it's written by an older person, there was a lot about aging, and even though I'm technically not ancient, I think about aging a lot, and I think about the passage of time a lot, and there are just some phenomenal bits in here, and I will read you a lot of them. Starting with this one, where he's talking about memory. What things seem to be matters far more to me than what things actually are. What they actually are is unknowable. I don't like that prison of hard and cold facts. Facts do not set you free, they trap you into a constructed view of reality that is final. The only truth is here, and here, and here, in the 3 seconds before it becomes a reconstruction. Really, I want to forget. Forgetting is freedom and forgiveness, but more than anything, it is a process of immersing myself in what is happening now. there are so many passages where he precisely says what I want to say and have never had the proper words for. But I think about this a lot, how we reconstruct things and our memories, we tell them so many times, we tell the same stories over and over, to the point where sometimes we think, is this just a story I'm telling, or did this actually happen this way? Do I remember it, or do I just remember the way that I tell it? So he talks a lot about like living in the moment, which I've been trying over the past few years to get better at, and is really the only thing that brings me as close to happiness as possible. Just being completely in the moment. Okay, this passage here is really important. And it's about our obsession with control. And moles really bring this out in humans, because moles will destroy your perfectly manicured garden. And for some people, that loss of control is too much. So it shows us something about ourselves. Apparently, sane people lose sleep over the chaos the moles create. We do not like to lose control of our property. It makes us feel uncomfortable, impermanent, weak. Moles can ruin domestic lawns, and I have seen real hatred developing in homeowners as they lose control and ownership of their gardens. I have seen people in a temper cursing across the garden. An obsession grows and an endless, unwinnable war can take over their lives. Moles are tiny. They are cute. And like the rest of nature, they do not care what we feel. They are devastating, and they always win. Perhaps some of our anger comes because we like to think of them as being gentle and kind, with an individual personality like Mole in The Wind in the Willows. With his big glasses, his good-natured bookishness, his innocence and eagerness to please. Yet in reality, the mole is not as introverted and self-effacing as we would like him to be. He takes advantage of us. Maybe we come to think that he is cleverer than we are, or maybe we have a deeper relationship with and a pride in the things we own and display to others. Ownership of things that appear permanent gives us a sense of permanence. We feel ourselves immortal because of our possessions, and the mole coming in and damaging them, taking them away, challenges something buried deep within us. Chef's kiss. What a beautiful passage. So let's unpack this. We like to have control. Our space is the thing that we can control. Especially if you own a home and you're able to make changes to it and really make it your own. Having it taken away by these little creatures that you can't even see because they're always underground and you can't really properly fight, and at the same time they're cute, so it's not like you want to destroy something that looks evil and disgusting and other. They're precious and small and velvety, but they're so devastating. And I love this bit about our possessions giving us a sense of permanence. Excuse me for bringing up the Titanic again, but you know how I am. It makes me think so much about how things live longer than people, because the fact that there are still possessions at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean that belong to the people who died on the Titanic, and those things have not yet fallen apart, not all of them, and a lot of them have been pulled up and put in museums. It's just, it's so hard to wrap my mind around, because we are biological matter that will disintegrate into the earth, and the objects we create are not really, and man-made things have such a long life. So this business of passing things down, inheriting things from your ancestors, it does give this sense of immortality. You know, I always say this is my grandma's, that's my grandma's. So much of my stuff in here is my grandmother's, and was maybe somebody, you know, her mother's or grandmother's before her, I don't know. So I just think that's a really astute observation in there. Let's see. So another interesting bit about objects, actually. He's talking about the tools that he uses when he's mole catching and gardening. It is a human process, and the tools are simple and brown and honest. I have grown old with these tools. They are handmade of wood, steel, and stone, and they have grown old with me and have molded to my hand. I have a relationship with tools like this. I feel that all the things in the world that I touch are touching me back. So this idea that these objects have a life that responds to ours, I think is so interesting, because you can go one way and say objects are just objects, they're meaningless, life is the only thing that matters. But in the way that we use these things, we give them life. And they take on almost a personality, especially these tools he talks about and the way he describes how they change as he uses them over time. They really do become, especially if you're in a solitary profession, like your little partners, your friends almost. We won't mention Sweeney Todd singing to his blades and calling them his friends, but I think as somebody who is a maximalist and therefore loves objects and touching different things and feeling the history of things and thinking about where they've been, I like that idea that I can be a nature lover and somebody who appreciates objects at the same time. You know, often I feel like I'm not welcome in the community of people who love nature because I'm not a minimalist. Could I live in a van? Probably, if I tried. I could definitely, like, I've lived out of a backpack for 6 months, you know, I thru-hiked the AT. I know how to carry the absolute bare minimum, but when it comes down to it, I want to come home after that long trip and be among the things that I've collected and the things that I love. And I just think you can have balance like that. You can love so many things, and you can be adaptable. Okay, this, see, it's difficult here because he has been killing moles for so long, but he doesn't enjoy it. You know, who wants to kill moles? Like, unless you're one of these people who's very angry at them for destroying your garden. You don't want to kill them, they're precious. And this man is a vegetarian, has been like almost all his life. So he definitely doesn't relish this. He says, I didn't enjoy killing, so my methods had to be efficient, detached, fast, and technical. I had to work to depersonalize the moles, because if, as I believe, all living things have equal value, and we are all the same, then I was killing myself. I didn't look at them. I became good at disassociating myself from their deaths. And this is what he has to do to make his living. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. They're too perfect, moles. But I think it's important to look at how he talks about this and not shy away from the fact that that is actually what he was doing. And we can rejoice now that he has quit. Okay. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on. I love this part because we get a visual description of moles. He feels like the best piece of velvet cloth you can imagine. He has whiskers and tiny needle-sharp teeth so small they look like slivers of glass found sparkling on the kitchen floor days after an accident, which, if I don't catch him, will wear out in a few years as he eats worms filled with sandy soil. There are no visible ears, and if you look carefully by brushing the fur, his eyes can just be seen in the darkness as shiny black dots, not much bigger than this full stop. Not much bigger than this full stop, and then he just puts the period there, and that description. To use the physical book and the way that the words look and the way that the size of that period, to use that as part of the description is art. He is a smooth velvet sausage. His back feet and legs are tiny, thin, and fragile like a mouse's, and he has a bristly tail an inch long that stands up to feel the roof of his tunnel. Oh, absolutely precious, adorable, perfect. I love every time they use the word velvet to describe moles. Well, there'll be another description actually right now, sort of. But I like this bit. He mentions wind in the willows again. Moles, blah, 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 blah. They're solitary animals. Despite this, the delightful mole in the wind in the willows becomes friends with rat, toad, and badger in this loveliest of all books. Perhaps we cannot help but anthropomorphize the creatures that we do not eat. In other stories, too, moles appear as far from solitary. Lily Gloves in the Chronicles of Narnia is a fine gardener and the leader of a warrior group of talking moles. Duncton Wood, a romantic story about an ancient empire of moles who worship standing stones in Oxfordshire, is full of battles and escapades. In any number of children's books, the mole and his friends have a variety of adventures. Perhaps it is hard for humans to write stories about being alone. Love that, because I'm so solitary. I am pretty much a mole. I mean, I'm around my cats all the time, so I guess I'm not totally solitary, but as far as other humans, I can usually do without. And it's true. I want to find books about people like me, about people who enjoy being alone. And I love this book because he's so solitary throughout most of it. He talks about his wife a bit, but for the most part, it's just him alone in the wild. And I love that we can't talk about the fact that moles actually are always alone until they mate. They just want to be by themselves. He talks about how they make little cheeping sounds in the tunnels so that they don't ever have to run into each other. And we can't handle that because we see them and how cute they are, and they should have little friends, and they should all have parties and adventures together. And that's just not how it is, and it doesn't have to be that way. Okay, this part's super interesting. In February 1702, William III, also known as William of Orange, was riding his horse Sorrel in Richmond when Sorrel stumbled on a molehill and threw the king to the ground, where he broke his collarbone with fatal consequences. He succumbed to pneumonia and died the following month. 14 years earlier, the Protestant William and his Queen Mary had deposed the ruling Catholic King James II of England and VII of Scotland. However, many factions in England, Scotland, Ireland, and further abroad were supporters of the deposed James, and this gave rise to the Jacobite toast to the mole, to the little gentleman in black velvet, which is still occasionally heard today. There is a wonderful bronze statue in St. James Square, London. William, dressed in flowing classical robes, is riding proudly, every inch the victorious king, his horse's head held back and high with flowing mane, and just by his left rear hoof there is a little molehill. Isn't that cool? I wish I'd known about that when I was in London. The fact that a mole can bring down an empire, like moles, something so tiny and so out of our sight and usually out of our minds, can destroy someone's life and bring joy to the people who wanted that person destroyed. It just shows you that anything can have power. Anything. But I love that description, the little gentleman in black velvet. That is my favorite mole description. Let's see. This bit about words is interesting. He covers so many topics so seamlessly throughout this book, and it's just, it's gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. By the gate there are bare willow trees with a small flock of tiny long-tailed birds flicking through the dangling yellow catkins, black and beige, perhaps a flash of pink or green. They are too fast, and in the dawn under the trees it is too dark to see them properly, but I think I know them. My memory for the names of things is not what it was. It doesn't seem important for me to try and remember. The answer will come of its own accord, or it won't. Words have a different existence to the things they name. They live in different places, have different lives. I loved that, because I had the same thought when I was on the Appalachian Trail through hiking for months. I didn't grow up knowing or being taught the names of different plants, flowers, trees, so I passed thousands and thousands of different kinds of things, and I couldn't name them, but they were just what they were. And I like this idea of words having a different existence to the things they name. And I actually just read in another book that, and I'll talk about this next time, that language is our second language. Think about that. We invented language. And so the names we give to things, are they really that real? But then I love words so much, so it's just interesting to think about. I love this part about existence. In quiet moments like this, there is a sense of completeness. Nothing else is needed to make them whole and perfect. I start my work looking down the field. I go quiet inside. The silence seems to pour out, filling any cracks or flaws in the perfection. Once you experience this feeling of simply existing, you lose the need to ask why you exist. Oh, gorgeous. Because I think all the time, what is the point? What is the point? Why do I exist? Why does anything happen? And then when there are moments where I feel perfectly in the present and alive, I don't think that anymore. I don't feel the need to ask that anymore because I feel like I figured it out. There is no point. It is just to be and to live every moment as it comes. What did I write here? No, everywhere. Oh, no permanence. Okay. I have a habit of coming back to these places. I have enjoyed having a territory of my own. There is a freedom in having a regular place to return to. It takes away the need to think about it and allows a person to rest. A sense of belonging was something that I wanted to give to my children, but I also have an unease about having a specific place to belong to. A feeling of belonging brings with it a desire to build something to mark one's connection, and then having built a garden, a house, a career, a tunnel system, one has to protect those things from intruders, violently if necessary. We try to create an illusion of permanence, but there is none. That got me thinking too, because I love my home so much, and I also I'm unsatisfied with like where my house physically is in the world. I don't want to live here, and I think I have this brain that just goes back to when we were all wanderers and wayfarers, and that I can't really be satisfied pretending like there is such a thing as permanence and like we can just put roots down somewhere and that's it, and that's our place forever. I don't know. Very interesting. This bit here I have experienced. It says, in the north of England and Scotland, they do not ask where you live or where you come from. They ask, where do you stay? As if living somewhere were just a stop on a journey, as if we were all travelers. Here in Wales is where I decided to stay. It is the dip in the bed that I roll down into when I am tired, the place where my woman and my children know to start looking for me. But in reality, we are all travelers. So when I lived in Scotland, I didn't like when people said that, and I didn't get it. Where do you stay? Because it made me feel like there was no permanence. I was like, what do you mean? I live in this place. Why are you asking where I'm like temporarily staying? But now having read that, I understand it much more as a concept, why it makes sense to say that. And I don't know. I like it better. Oh, we're definitely gonna go over time here, aren't we? Oh well, now I know how to edit, so. So this bit here, he talks a lot about his experience when he was homeless and sleeping in nature. At night, when I rested, I dissolved into the earth and the night as if I were made of them. I was not in nature, I didn't commune with it. I was nature, as close to my true nature as it was possible to be each day, all day, every day. And every morning leaving my bed at dawn with perhaps the briefest backward glance, never to return, never to own it, or have that same experience again. I can't talk. That bed, that view, these places were and still are my home. That's a feeling that I got a lot while I was through hiking. I would look around sometimes and think I probably will never be back in this exact spot of the woods. And that I just felt like I learned like our true purest form of ourselves is the self that we find in nature, because that is where we're meant to be. That's where we're supposed to be. We were not supposed to be in massive cities and breathing exhaust from cars and putting our heads down and walking past each other and not acknowledging anyone because we've all just got to go, go, go. We were meant to be among the trees and flowers and birds. At least that's where I feel the best. So here's another bit that he wrote about when he was homeless. That was a life without worry. I would live or die and neither would matter. Even lying under a pier once, starving and feeling that I was dying, I felt sad. But I also reasoned that it was perfectly acceptable to feel sad in that situation. Goodbyes are sad. There is no avoiding sadness in life, although it seems that happiness is easier to avoid. I have in my times deliberately tried to die, but I am still here, and life is always one on its own terms, so I stopped trying to make the choice for myself. It seemed that it was not my decision to make, and I began allowing life to happen. It feels much better that way. I learned it from the birds, who just flew and nested and ate and made new birds, and the hedgehogs, who just shuffled and ate and made new hedgehogs, and they all died and went back to mud in their own good time. I think this is a beautiful way to describe losing your tendency toward wanting to take your life. And I keep bringing up the AT, but it's the most time that I've spent, an extended period of time in nature, and I experienced sort of the same thing, where I learned what was really important, and what it felt like to really be alive and really be present, and that it shouldn't be up to me, well, we all have our free will, whatever, but I want to stick it out and see things through and see what the earth does with me, I just thought that was a beautiful description of it. You really learn so much. If you have never gone camping or backpacking for a long time, you should try it. This will raise the mood. People have asked me about keeping a mole as a pet. If you want to keep him as a pet, you will need to supply him with worms at a phenomenal rate, and you will never see him. If you wanted him to have a good life, instead of a short, miserable one, you would need a tank full of good soil about 2 feet deep and as big as the floor plan of a house. You need to supply him with worms at a phenomenal rate, and you will never see him. Oh, it's just so sad, because obviously I would love to have a mole in my life, but they just need so much room, and they don't want to come out from under the dirt, so not sure it would be a great life for them. They don't really belong in captivity, but they are so cute. Okay. Now, since the author is always so solitary, he, the way that he talks about interacting with people after being alone for a long time is very interesting, because I feel like I just relate so much to this. And it's always fun for me to realize that people, no matter where they are in the world or who they are, can have very similar experiences, or similar ways of thinking about things. I'm not an old man mole catcher in Wales, but I just see exactly what he's saying. Okay, so he says, the day is finishing. The farmer has left his tractor at the top of the field and is walking down the fence line toward me. His shape becomes farmer, becomes a whole and complete and rounded man in my world with a ram's horn stick, and I become a man in his world. I watch him, his walk, his stoop, his clothes, his splash of white hair, his age, and he must see the same thing about me. Our different worlds align, and I become aware of being just a man. No horns, no labyrinth, just a muddy man, aware of my height and size, beard and baldiness, the dirt on my clothes and hands. I think it's a great description of being perceived by others, and also perceiving others. That I can freak myself out so much about thinking of how I appear to other people. Not like, do they think I'm cute or anything, but like, is the way that I move my arms bizarre? Am I appearing as a human right now, or am I not? I really don't know. Fascinating. I have no future in mole catching, and although it has given me a life that I have loved, a small life, not much, it is a life handmade by me. I am not a master craftsman, but out of something ill-formed, worthless, and unwanted, like a Japanese potter, I filled the cracks with gold. I do not know what life is, but I know what it does. Mole catching has been a life that has brought me closer to the nature of my own existence and what it means. It has allowed me to treat the wild outside as a precious home instead of something one is cast out into, to feel directly connected to the breath of the air that fuels me, to the soil and the sun and the rain that feed me. It has made me fit and healthy and peaceful. That connection with the earth is now part of every cell of my body, but I need to rest. So, I absolutely adored this. I'm glad that he came to this decision to stop catching moles and that he is peacefully transitioning into the next stage of his life where he won't be working so much. And it gave me a lot to think about as far as aging, living in the present, connecting with nature. There's just so much. There's so much in this book, and you really have just got to read it. It's such a quick read too, and at the end of every chapter there's a poem that he's written, and it's all just gorgeous. And again, the experience of reading this book was beautiful, and I'm glad to say now it is one of my favorite books, and I hope in a few years to read it again, and hopefully I will have forgotten a lot so it'll be new again. So yes, highly recommend How to Catch a Mole by Marc Hamer, and there are beautiful illustrations in here as well, so you don't want to miss out on that. Let's see, I'm gonna find one. There's some birds, and let's see, I think at the end, yes, some moles. Just gorgeous. Read it, tell me what you thought. And think some big thoughts about life and the meaning of everything and what it doesn't mean, because is there a meaning, and does it matter? Does anything matter except right now? Thank you so much for watching this 100th video of mine, and I will see you all next time. Happy reading.